ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise, and welcome back to From the Depths Most Wanted, where the thing that is on the wanted list, smeared all over the thumbnail as the wanted poster in the crosshairs, is the Grey Talon's boss airship, or thrustercraft, or flying thing. This is the Empyrean. I think that's how you pronounce it. It is spelled E-M-P-Y-R-E-N. Empyrean. I'm just going to say Empyrean because that sounds cool. So, this thing is actually quite similar to the last entry in the Most Wanted series, the White Flare's Leviathan, in that it is a railgun-packing, heavy armor brick that spawns nuclear weapons in. Well, rather, it's packing nuclear weapons. The Leviathan doesn't actually spawn them in. This does, which already gives you a hint as to how annoying this thing is. So let's go over its strengths and weaknesses. I've already mentioned some. So the first thing is that back here in this thing that does actually look like a little silo, what you have is a nuke spawner. So hang on, let's just... What is happening? I think that's on a spin block. So let's just do this and tap, tap, tap. And you can't really see much, but you can see a blueprint spawner right there. And a sub-vehicle spawner as well. So this spawns nukes. If we go here, we can see right there. So Nita, Great Talons, IC, ICBM, GT, and... if we hit test spawn, yep, there it is. There it is, we just spawned one. Didn't know you could do that, that's very convenient. And this fella is just holding on to the ICBM. And then we've got one of them, so... Uh-oh, it's gonna collide with us, isn't it? No, it isn't. Yes, it is? No, it isn't. So, the ICBM is, I believe, over here in the easy section of the Grey Talons roster, but don't be fooled, it's, Suicide Craft is one of those things that if you forget about them and if you're not ready for them, they will absolutely ruin your day, and they will, in particular, ruin the day of large craft that can't evade them. So this is already cause for alarm and concern when you see this thing coming over the horizon. But there's a lot more. For one thing, you'll notice that there is a lot of railguns in here. Those are pure railguns, not railgun hybrids. There are pros and cons to both, like, pure rail and gunpowder rail hybrids. In the case of pure railguns, you get very, very fast shells. So let's just go over here. These are Sabo slugs. Super cavitation, so hiding underwater does absolutely nothing. And they hit really, really hard. So... 13,000, well, almost 14,000 kinetic damage, goes through about 8 meters of metal. That's the math I did, correct me if I'm wrong, please. And the armor piercing is what's particularly scary. 75.5 armor piercing means that it really doesn't care what material it's shooting at, it is going to go straight through it. So, this is the kind of thing that, like, only very thick armor, something that has a lot of health, adequately defends against that, which means that something like, well, 8 meters of metal will do much better than, oh, I don't know, something like 2 meters of heavy armor and stuff like that, because this does full damage to stacked heavy armor. Stacked heavy armor has, like 2 layers of it as an armor value of only 72, I believe. Let's just double check that. So, go here, armor of 60, max structural armor boost is 12. So yeah, 72. This does full damage to stacked heavy armor. It is scary, scary. And each one of these guns fires 25 rounds per minute, so that's 50 rounds per turret, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. 6 times 50 is about 300, so 300 rounds per minute. That goes straight through multiple layers of heavy armor, which is scary as hell and very annoying. But that's not the only... Yep, there's the ICBM, it collided with us. Finally. So, because I was expecting it. Alright, so that's not the only thing that is scary about that. It's got these secondary guns right here, and these are a combination of squash and heat shells. So, in the highly unlikely event that the main guns can't handle something, these 60mm tandem warhead shells tend to make a bit of a mess of it. So, well, they're 80mm actually. So, these things also, like, if you're over-focusing on the railguns, these things will also do terrible things to you if you don't happen to have enough spaced armor or ERA or something like that. So that's scary. Also, while we're over here on the main part of this, let's talk about the armor. This thing is quite strongly armored, so bearing in mind that there's quite strict block count and volume limits for campaign craft, which the keepers of the lore, my goodness, they're good at their job. They have to work around that, but they've done pretty damn well with this thing. This takes a lot of punishment. So, at the thickest part, which is around here, we've got a layer of metal, 2 layers of metal, 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of alloy. Alloy is decent armor. It is expensive, but, like, this is, you know, when you have this amount of railguns, like, this thing's already going to be expensive. Excuse me, I've eaten soft drink. Okay, and then over here, around the custom jets, which, by the way, there's good reasons for this level of protection around the big custom jets, we have stacked heavy armor, which is a rare thing to see, because usually I like to say that heavy armor is the more effective the less use of it, but sometimes there's no kill like overkill. This is very, very strong. In all my test fights against this thing, it's rare to see it fall out of the sky, simply because, like, the stacked heavy armor right here. In fact, I think that, yeah, the stacked heavy armor, like, proceeds around, where the AI compartment is? Yes, it does it over here as well. So this is quite strong. You're gonna need to, well, basically use stuff like what this craft is packing in order to put holes in it. And speaking of holes, and this thing's ability to create them, moving along from front to back, it has a very strong Seawiz turret, which hurts like hell, actually. This is almost, in fact, I think it's over the limit of how fast an APS can fire. So, 2,400, yes. This 33mm Seawiz gun, so let's see here. Visible traces, very strong. This takes out large and huge missiles like it's nothing. And let's see here. Let's see, so it's 33mm. It's not a railgun. It doesn't need to be, really. So let's go here. Let's actually have a check here. 30-30. So that is a lot of damage. And when this thing's not shooting at your missiles, it's shooting at you. And that amount of shells, even though they're very small, they make a bit of a mess. So this, like, you know, it's just adding insult to injury. It's just this thing will shoot you. Alright, and moving along, back here, probably the main draw of this thing, apart from that nuke spawning right there, you'll notice that there are missiles back here. They are big missiles, they're scary missiles. So to start off with, you've got this battery of 1, 2, 3, 15 medium missiles, and these are radar seekers, which are primarily kinetic, so 3 reinforced bodies, lots of health, and they hit pretty damn hard, actually. So 37 times 254 is a big number. I can't do math in my head. But yeah, like, these things hurt like hell, and we're not even at the big missiles yet. Protection guidance, signal processor, so it's hard to distract them. Moving along, though, we've got huge missiles over here, and these are really the things that steal the limelight, so to speak. So, geez, these are painful. So these are remote-guided thumper heads, which are pretty much always scary. They are very expensive, because huge missiles are expensive, and all the general-purpose processing power you need, 54 in this case, that's also very expensive, and it's why the AI compartment is so big on this thing. It's like, it's got so many little computery bits on it. But it's worth it in this case because it's got narrow angle frag and a lot of thump. So fragment cold angle is about 23 and basically 60,000 damage per frag. So this punches holes very deeply into enemy craft and is basically a little bit like a very nasty... It's almost like it's almost like a heat missile, except with absolutely no subtlety. So it's like I could use science to poke holes through you, or I could use brute force. And brute force it definitely has, because 1240 impact damage times 224 is an even bigger number than the number I mentioned before. You can do the math for yourself on that one, because, as I mentioned, I'm bad at doing math in my head. Just trust me, these things really hurt, and just for giggles, it has another one. It has a slightly different one over here, and this is not a fragger, this is an explodey one, so only slightly less impact damage per second, but it's slightly faster, so still very big thump numbers, and almost 100,000 HE damage, which is basically erasing blocks in a big sphere of about 30 meters or so. So yeah, this thing really hurts. It's I actually tended to underestimate this thing because, you know, I was chucking, like, in my testing to see how this thing does. Like, I was throwing it against things like... What was I throwing it against? I was throwing it against, like, Scarlet Dawncraft, which kind of hard counter this. Which leads us quite nicely to the weaknesses of this, because, of course, this thing's not invincible. If it was, I wouldn't be able to make a Most Wanted of it, and I would be very sad, and I would be probably complaining about that non-stop. So, what are we going with first? Well, this thing is quite slow, so the Great Talons have a bunch of scary airships. Some of them are very fast, so things like the Aquila and even frontsiders like the Goshawk, they actually go like stink and it's hard to catch them. This is not one of those things. It's got a top speed of 41 meters per second, which, like, for a ship, for something that displaces water on the surface, that's pretty fast. For something that flies, and particularly for something that eats fuel like it does and has lots of custom jets, that's pretty slow, and it's probably just because it's, you know, it's very big, it's very heavy. This is like 20,000 blocks. Most of those blocks are heavy armor blocks, or so it feels like, and she's a heavy girl. And partially because she's so heavy, this thing is something, well, I like to call craft like this hydrophobic, because if they touch the surface of the water, they die, so to speak. So if I just go over here, if I pull you out of play, and if I just, I don't know, just do a silly thing and drop your altitude to 0 and spawn you in, you will immediately notice that this thing sinks like a railgun packing rock, because a lot of late game craft for the Great Talons, for the Great Talons and the Scarlet Dawn, they cannot get themselves out of the water if their custom jets are submerged. And I think that is by design, because can you imagine how frustrating these things would be if, like, they were basically managed to float? It means that, like, you'd have to destroy them utterly once they touch the wet stuff, which is, you know, that's more time for railguns to shoot you. Are you gonna damage yourself? Whoa, my goodness. Alright, so, yeah. And moving on, one of the other things that makes this an interesting craft, and I'm going to spawn this thing in against itself, because that is an excellent demonstration of what do. Alright, let's go over here, spawn in the Empyrean on the Great Talons team, and then I'm going to spawn in one. Oh, what should we do? Let's spawn in one... Let's spawn in one on the Onyx Watch team, because, what the... No, I didn't mean to do that. Alright, because Great Talon craft actually look pretty good in Onyx Watch colors, and vice versa, whenever you want to get ideas for paint jobs. Alright, so, an interesting thing that this craft does is that it's weirdly fixated with pointing its bum at the enemy, which on the one hand is understandable because the missiles are pointing backwards, and the ICBM maker is pointing backwards, so it wants to actually point most of its firepower that way. And if you look at the behavior, you'll see that it's circle at a distance, and, like, both of these behaviors, I'm not sure why... Interesting. Alright, so circle at a distance, left and right, and I'm guessing, I haven't checked, I'm guessing there's ACBs somewhere in here that allows them to switch, But yeah, that 45-degree angle seems to result in it pointing its butt at the enemy. So we'll see if these do that. They're probably going to get closer first, and you can see there the two... Is there only two? Alright, so you'll see the huge missiles going there. They're gaining altitude because their behavior is to go about, let's see here, about 50 meters above the target. And you can just see there, this is a heavily armored craft, but those missiles are still managing to tear chunks off each other. Mirror matches are great fun. And the railguns are also poking holes in this thing already. Armor is holding up a little bit. And, what else can we say? So, oops, yep, there's an ICBM. Whoa, what happened over there? Alright, oh yeah, it also has missile interceptors, lots of them, so, it is decently resistant to missiles. You can see it's kind of, it is managing to delete some missiles as they come in. It just so happens that, the missiles that this thing chucks are very, very big and have a lot of health. Okay, so are they doing it? I think in this case they spawn too far apart, but quite often, particularly against a craft which are slower at it, it kind of points its butt at them. Hold on, I think it's doing it now. Actually, am I crazy? Yes, or it's just falling out of the sky. I'm not sure which. Oh, wow, I completely forgot about these. Damn, this thing has more toys than I realized. So these are large missiles that it looks like... What do they have? Okay, those are either... I'm guessing those are thumpers as well. I knew this thing had large missiles as well. Thought I was going crazy. So here we go. Now you can kind of see it's starting to point away from the target. And again, understandable, all the weapons are on the booty, but also it means the weapons can get shot at, so if you can just hit this thing consistently, eventually it will show its arse, and then you can hit it. You can punch it in the butt, so to speak. Ever been punched in the butt before? It's not as bad as being punched elsewhere, but it still kind of sucks. Okay, looks like this thing is starting to have some control issues, and... Speaking of... Well, no, not speaking of control. Speaking of this thing getting damaged, you will notice that this doesn't have a LAM. So when I shrunk the blocks earlier, probably should do that again, you'll notice there were no laser components in here. So things like... What else is in this delicious menu? So things like the Warlord, the Kobold, and the Goshawk and stuff like that, they have big scary LAMs. This does not, interestingly enough, so which means that big shells are a major threat to it. So definitely APS shells, so things that are just, you know, packing lots of damage, like stuff in the 400 to 500 millimeter range. Like, even if they're not mostly kinetic and not very fast, and by not very fast I mean less than 1,000 meters per second, they are a threat to this thing. So, it's not great at dealing with large shells. It can dodge them, which is why crams are not the #1 recommended thing against this. I forgot to mention that. This thing does bob up and down, but, interestingly enough, it kind of stops doing that. It's a little bit inconsistent. Like, it bobs up and down, like, a little bit, particularly towards the start of a fight, but then it kind of stops doing that. So, like, it can get hit about 50% of the time by slower shells, like cram cannons, but then 50% of the time it can dodge them. So it's kind of inconsistent in that regard, which is bad news for both the Empyrean and whatever cram cannon is shooting at it, which is annoying. It also has shields, I forgot to mention. It definitely has those. And, oh yeah, look at those Onyx watch collars. That looks real good. Yeah, so, oh well, I actually mentioned the thing I was going to mention. So, how do you survive this thing? Well, first off, the Empyrean kind of demonstrates how to do that with that honking big sea whiz over there. And also, its missile interceptors. Where are they? They're somewhere around here. Not there. Where are they? Oh, they're literally firing Where are they? Oh, there they are. They're on the sides. Interesting. Interesting. Yep, those are definitely... Yep, those are little interceptors. Medium interceptors. Effective interceptors. So yeah, you're gonna want to bring your Seawers, your Lambs, and your interceptors along, because if you do not do that, those missiles are gonna hit you, and if they're full health, they're gonna hit you real hard. So missile defense is paramount. I'd say the missiles are the main damage dealers on this thing. The railguns are, I don't know, mostly to poke holes in you and make things worse. And yeah, you definitely need hit-scan weapons like lasers or particle cannons, which is basically just those two. Those are your options. Pick your favorite one, because those ICBMs, like I mentioned earlier, if you're ready for them, they're not a huge problem, but if you're not ready for them, they'll ruin your life. And in particular, you need to set up the target prioritization on whatever AI is controlling your packs or lasers, so they do aim for the ICBMs every time. If you do not do that, your AI will derp and it will not shoot at them properly. And also, you might want to tweak the detection systems on them, or how the mainframe uses detection, in order to aim at ICBMs properly, because they can be quite hard to hit, because they're wiggly and very fast. And you also need shield projectors and system redundancy, because you're not going to stop those railguns with armor, or at the very least, you're not going to stop them very long. So 8 meters of metal, if you have anything less than that, and probably if you, even have something like that, those shells are gonna get through it eventually. So you do need shield projectors. You absolutely do. Ring shields? No. Like, I never really recommend ring shields. I do not believe that they are very useful. Shield projectors are just better, just because they, there's kind of a decent chance that they will ping railguns off into space harmlessly, as opposed to just softening the blow when the railgun, tears straight through you. And the last thing you can do, partially because this thing has no hit-scan weapons of its own, it does have very fast shells, is use craft that can outrun large and huge missiles. So these guys over here, these are the slowest missiles this thing has. 224 meters per second, I believe, was the number that popped up on screen. You don't have to move quite that fast, but you do have to move fast enough that whatever anti-missile systems you have can damage this thing's missiles and slow them down. That is a valid tactic in this day and age. Just keep running, run, and just have interceptors constantly firing and, like, slowing down the missiles so they fail to actually hit you. Valid tactic, very useful. Alright, so how do you kill this thing? Well, I've probably already touched on that multiple times. And it's just demonstrated how to do that. Basically use big shells. Big shells, and, like, smoke. I mean, lasers, not really an option. This thing does have smoke. It has plenty of smoke, actually. You can see the little laser warners all over it. So there's 2... and there's probably more elsewhere. There's some. So yeah, lasers, not great. Also because this thing moves quite slowly and it stays within its own smoke. Yeah, you can hit this thing with cram cannons. I don't really recommend that, because the thing does bob up and down a little bit, and so the crams do have a rotten habit of whiffing precisely when you do not want them to. So yeah, spam large APS and pack cadet, and just try and take out its guns, try and take out its custom jets, and try and take out the rear of the craft in particular, because that's where all the missiles and where the ICBM launcher is. So we're going to hop into the custom battle now, and we're going to chuck this thing against T-Stali, the good old Titanslang, and I would like to just mention ahead of time that the Empyrean and the Titanslang are actually very evenly matched. This fight could go either way, and if the T-Stali wins, I get to say, yay, that's how you do it, and if she doesn't win, I get to say, yeah, that's why you should be scared of this thing. So, off to the custom battle simulator we go! Alrighty, so here we are in the custom battle setup, And this is a very even fight. The Titanslang is slightly more expensive than the Empyrean, but the Empyrean is, I feel, kind of a more meta craft because it's packing a lot of railguns, a lot of kinetic missiles, and of course that freaking nuke launcher. So let's see what happens. I have actually modified T-Starly a little bit to try and help her do better, but we'll have to see whether she actually wins this one. It does not always go her way. And you can see right there, she spawns in at an altitude, drops, that first cram cannon whiffed entirely, and the hit point count is very even at the moment, and you can see T-Starly has decent missile defense, but it's just not enough to stop, in particular, these huge missiles. And it just almost disabled that laser turret. And annoyingly, because most craft love to go for clusters of blocks, it means the cram cannons tend to get targeted first, which is frustrating. Oh no, I really hope I remember to do that properly. So, alright, so, good move. This is a good sign of things to come, because that is a big... Yep, so that is a huge missile taken out, and it's another one damaged. And this stuff right here, those are the large missiles, so yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier. Wow! Whoa! It actually took out a turret. Whoa! T-Starly's winning. Oh! Kalu Kalay, it's a good day. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like, when you spawn this thing in, I think possibly it's because I might have spawned her in too close. But also, yeah, she likes to point her butt at the enemy, and she's actually moving closer, which is a weird thing to do. So yeah, they're just, this is a DPS race more than anything else. Basically, it's whoever does more damage more quickly, that's the one who wins. Which means that the Empyrean has a little bit of an advantage because she can hit T-Starly more consistently than T-Starly can hit her. Let's see, there's a cram cannon. Is it going to do what I want it to? It is. Didn't do a hell of a lot. It must have exploded on a shield. No bueno. And right there. Right there. That used to be an ICBM, as you can tell by the custom jet. That's why you need to bring your lasers along. If you do not do that, they will kill you. Alright, so T-Starly has got a 4% health lead. We'll have to see if that lasts. You can probably tell that those railguns are just poking holes straight through the armor. We also got very lucky on that initial missile volley that nothing too important was taken out. Just a whole bunch of deck armor. Let's see here. It looks like... Where is... Hang on, let's pause for a second. Let's see here. There's the Empyrean. There's the Titanslang. No ICBMs on the way. There's those large kinetic missiles. And once we get to... Ah, there's an ICBM build. Once we get to this distance, the optimal distance for the Empyrean, should have spawned these things at a greater distance. Would have been more fair on the Empyrean, but... There's an ICBM. Let's follow the ICBM, and hopefully T-Starly can demonstrate at what point you need to start dealing with this. It's also important that if you're going to have lasers that pull double duty as CWIS, that you stick priorities on them that allow them to... basically, you want them to have one local weapon controller, so the thing fires at long range. And then you want a CWIS controller that has a higher priority, so it shoots at missiles. But then you want a second local weapon controller that has a higher priority than the CWIS controller, so it shoots at enemies when they get close. So T-Starly doesn't actually have that setup, but I can highly recommend doing that, because if you don't, you're going to have a lot of problems. As you can see, Empyrean is starting to catch up in the health lead. And she's starting to move closer again. Let's see if that get... Yep, so ICBM gets cooked, thank goodness. The good news about those ICBMs is that if you can hit them, if you can clip their tail feathers, so to speak, you can kill them, because they're very small, very delicate, which means that once you land a hit on them, they kind of fall out of the sky immediately. I think the main APS on T-Stali has been taken out. That's very frustrating. T-Stali actually lacks redundancy, which is a point against her for this kind of matchup. You want redundancy when facing anything that has railguns like this, because, well, my armor's not gonna cut it. Yeah, now it's evening up. Now the fight's evening up. You can see the Empyrean is doing what she does best. And see, even now, she's moved closer, but because she moves in at a 45-degree angle, she ends up pointing her butt at the target. I'm not seeing many cram shells fly. I wonder if the crams are disabled. Let's go have a look. And T-Stali is moving away. That is not smart, T-Stali. Yeah, looks like... Yeah, main guns are... Yep, that is a stuck cram. That is a disabled cram. Oh my goodness, the APS is gone. Oh, yep. This is... Yeah, so T-Stali's not winning this one. Oh no. Oh no, you were doing so well, my girl, but not enough. And that should also show quite nicely that even though the White Flare Leviathan and this craft are quite similar in like the way, like their premise, which is basically, you know, railguns and you know, having Suicide Craft ride shotgun with them. The Empyrean is bigger and meaner, and also has a really damn nasty missile barrage. So, really, the Empyrean is a better counter to itself than the Titanslang is. So, we could sit here and watch T-Stali get mauled, but I don't have the heart for that. So, she's been beaten enough, and she's been beaten up enough in recent days. So yeah, that does it for this Most Wanted. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps, and there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths, Most Wanted, where hopefully T-Stali will be fighting something she can actually beat again. Farewell.